Come with me as I went to Flatford Mill in Essex to learn how to make leaded stained glass panels. So I started off by packing the car, stroking my dog, and then it was a time to kind of get in the car and go. I'd have loved to have brought her with me, but unfortunately I really couldn't. I don't think she'd have enjoyed it anyway. We got a drink, we got our snacks. So obviously driving through the country lanes, obviously it was a place called Flatford Mill in Essex, I believe. So we kind of made my way there through increasingly country-esque lanes of getting narrower and narrower as we got closer to our destination, which ended up basically being me going down a single track lane, hoping that nothing came in the opposite direction, while the single track lanes were still marked down as 40, 50 and 60 miles an hour, which I guess is pretty standard for the British countryside. As we got there, I, worked my way across and found that I was in this absolutely gorgeous place, famous for John Constable's painting of the Hay Wain, which is a incredibly famous painting. Not that I actually have ever heard of it until about a week before I was going away. When I got here, I had a few hours until the course started. No one really seemed to know what was going on, so I went and got myself a brownie and a lemonade. I also bought myself some kind of paints and just generally had a bit of an explore around the local area, looking at some of the old buildings, the gift shops, this kind of really cute little book nook thing. Obviously you could kind of, honesty box kind of book library kind of style thing. I also found the kind of gallery space which had a copy of the Hay Wain up on the wall, which obviously enabled me to actually kind of see what this place was so famous for. The Hay Wain up on screen right now. And this is the actual where the Hay Wain was painted, so I get that shot every morning. The course operates at the Field Studies Council in Flatford Mill, and they also hold other courses such as watercolours and really painting, drawing, all those kind of courses, which ended up with this being more like a retreat than it did kind of like an educational trip. I found myself a lot more relaxed after this than I really expected myself being. Just as it started to rain, I got the keys for my room, and then I proceeded to basically make my way up to see what my room was like. So this is my room. I'm hoping that I've got it to myself. It looks like it kind of sleeps 4 people. There's like it's like a shelf thing that you can see from the outside of a building. I'll try and get some footage of that from the outside of a building so you can kind of see where my room is. You've obviously got this kind of like a little area here with like a sink and a mirror. I think, there we go. So you've got a light there. Seems to be a light over there. Obviously it's an old mill, so yeah, I think the bathroom is just outside the door and the shower's downstairs, so I mean, fair enough. I assume as I've only laid up for 1 mug, that would mean I do have this room to myself. I mean, it looks like there's enough space for more mugs. And obviously they've just gone like 2 biscuits and 1 chocolate bar, so I think this should be me. So night 1, we went down to dinner first, met the other people on our course, and then basically had a quick first session that evening. So I've got to talk very quiet because it's now about 10 o'clock and we've just finished our first kind of lesson. I just took a couple of little clips. It was more talking about health and safety and, you know, general bits and pieces like that. They've given us one of these kind of pieces of paper to kind of draw our own design if we want to, or we can use some of the designs that they've kind of brought in. It seems like everyone has done it before. So I'm completely the only one who's not done it before, but it's late now, so I'm obviously kind of got all my stuff together and I'm gonna flick the light out and go to sleep in a little bit. We've got to be up for 8 AM for breakfast in the morning, and we'll go from there. So I've now woken up. Sun coming through the window. It was a reasonable night's sleep. A little bit comfortable. About 6 AM someone started banging from downstairs. Don't know what they were doing, but here we go. Let's make some stained glass windows. So we started the day with some breakfast, which was really nice. It was a fry-up, which obviously for the number of people that were there, it was obvious that, you know, they couldn't have, it wasn't the best fry-up in the world, but it was definitely a good way to start the day. We then had to go to this kind of like sandwich making place to obviously make our sandwiches, which would obviously be for our kind of like packed lunch during the day. And then basically it was to make our way down to the room to start learning. First stage was to pick the glass that we wanted to use to make our panels. So obviously I decided that I wanted to use kind of greens and purples, try and match it in with the colour scheme of my bathroom. And then basically we then got given a board, got told to put our design on the board, and then got to start practicing cutting glass, where you can see me kind of learning on some float glass, which obviously, you know, having never cut glass, this was my first ever time cutting glass, as you can see it right now. And then, yeah, basically you snap a bit off, and there you have it. I've got my shape. And then basically what you do is you lay it on top of your design, kind of try and work it out and have it looking how you want it to. So until I got to a stage where I was comfortable cutting the glass, I did quite a lot of practicing on float glass, but eventually I got to a stage where I felt, actually, you know what, I can do this, and I decided to start cutting some coloured glass.
They understand the processes a lot more, and so a lot of the speakers and the businesses that we get now are feel so rubbish when they go and bring a beautiful piece of glass and end up with a load of colour. You still feel bad for
No, honestly, it's fine.
it. Trying to make some flowers or something else.
So I started placing different bits of glass in place, cutting them individually. I didn't do a lot of recording of the cutting process, mainly because obviously where we're all cutting and grozing and doing all the bits that we needed to do, it wasn't quite safe to obviously have the camera out and also be doing that at the same time. But I did get to a stage where I had all of my pieces kind of in a nice position, and you know, it was just a very interesting experience to learn how to cut and obviously shape glass into the shapes I'm kind of looking to try and do. So after a while I had all of my panels, all of my glass pieces kind of ready to go in my panel. I was happy with my design, and it was time to start trying to figure out, well, how do you put it into the glass panel? But first, what we needed to do was we needed to learn how to pull the lead. Pulling the lead is the process of taking the raw kind of material lead that you get kind of given in a big old spool and stretching it out, so what you can essentially do with it is use it for leading your windows and panels. I asked the gentleman if I could record the process of what he was doing, and he showed me how to pull some lead. So it's basically just kind of like making it flat?
You straighten it out a little bit so it's approximately right, so you'll see that. And then down here we've got what's called a lead vice. So I've just and they're relatively cheap. They're just a little aluminium casting. So that tightens it in there.
Right.
And it's a case of getting a pair of pliers. You're going to lose a little bit on each one when you do it, and then you start stretching it, and then as it starts unwinding, you work out.
Are you unwinding it yourself, or is it unwinding as you're stretching?
It sorts of unwinds as you're stretching it, but what you've got to do is try and work out how far you've got to go. That's there. Got us. And as you pull more and more, you can pull yourself a bit in a minute.
Yeah.
As you pull it more and more and more, it gets stiffer and stiffer and stiffer because it work hardens.
So then we had all of our pulled bits of lead. A couple of these you can see are mine, one of which is obviously the gentleman who showed me how to do it. And it was time to start kind of putting my lead in place. So I cut a couple of pieces and obviously laid them on my design. We put the design in the bottom left-hand corner, so obviously we can start butting everything up against it. And then I just start laying my pieces of glass in place and just kind of adding the lead. Now, working my way along. And as you see, each piece by piece, and then start pinning the pieces in place to hold it together, adding the next piece, and I'm using these horseshoe nails to essentially hold everything down while I then put the next pieces in. And as you can see, I take the horseshoe nail out.
Right, let's go back to principles. Go back here. Right. So,
I then get the next piece of glass, I slot that in, and then I pin it on one side. Now, however, it was a time for some lunch, and I sat next to the water on a little bench. I was outside of a kind of classroom, looking at the fish and just generally having a bit of lunch while I relaxed and just kind of really took in the fact it was a really nice day. I think, you know, the fact that the weather was so lovely did kind of add to the feeling of the course. After lunch I was back to it. I was obviously putting all my bits of glass in place, obviously getting everything to be where they needed to be. Here you see I have to like grows a bit of the glass off, so obviously it can fit in the gap. I then had to go away, just kind of like grind it down a little bit. I didn't get any footage of grinding the glass down, which I kind of regret now. I really should have done that, but I was obviously focusing on kind of keeping the camera in place and not just keep moving it around and getting in everybody else's way. So here, as you can see, I've had to take everything apart because basically I needed to cut the end pieces of the lead, make them to the size of kind of that middle part of the glass, so then I could run my perpendicular piece of lead up the end of all of those glass pieces, get all that in, so I can do my final exterior glass pieces. And you see what I'm doing here is obviously I'm putting a piece of glass in and then obviously moving the lead in place, pinning it down with the horseshoe nails, and then just methodically going piece by piece, adding the horseshoe nails, removing them, putting the next piece of glass in, leading, horseshoe nails, rinse, repeat. Until eventually, as you can see, I start getting to a position where the design that I drew on my piece of paper is really coming to life. A little bit more grossing, which is obviously where you get the pliers and you kind of essentially just snap off the edges of the glass for a lack of a better term. And then finally, as you see, you can see me putting that perpendicular piece of lead in place, obviously getting everything cut to size. You see, once again I have to trim down that piece, and this is obviously where, you know, you can find that because you have to leave kind of gaps between each of the glass pieces, anytime you get something slightly wrong, you've got to go down, alter it, work your way through, alter it again, take it out, put it back in again. So you can see where it can get quite time consuming. I mean, this whole clip that you're seeing is probably over the space of about maybe an hour, and obviously I've sped it up to, you know, keep you all interested. But as you can see, it's taken me quite some time to actually kind of get all of this in place. And for me, obviously, where I quite enjoy this kind of process, I can guess for some people, you know, you might find this to be a little bit kind of, you take everything apart just to put it all back together again, and then you take it apart to put it back together again. So, be very aware. As you can see, I'm having to take everything apart again so that I can then put the final pieces in place, put that piece of glass in place. I've then obviously used the horseshoe nails, cut myself off a new bit of lead, put that in place again, horseshoe nails in place, and then finally with the last two pieces of lead, I had everything in place. The next step was tallowing, which obviously is essentially you're kind of using some kind of flux to work with the lead-based solder that you'd be using to attach everything together. So using this tallow candle, you basically just rub it all over all of the joints.
Yeah. So you've got when you start thinking about your lead lines, you've got one from here. You want to go for your longest ones?
And then it was time for dinner, which was chicken stroganoff, potato wedges, and I believe mange too, which was lovely. And then we suddenly started hearing kind of music coming from across the water. So I've got no idea whether or not this is going to get copyright claimed, but for the entire evening session, all we could hear was basically the sound check for a Fleetwood Mac tribute concert. I then started practicing putting all of my kind of lead bits together, just doing some random soldering work, just to try and really get used to the temperature of the solder, what you have to do, before I then got to a stage where I tallowed all of my joints and I was ready to start soldering, which was incredibly exciting. So as you can see here, I'm soldering everything. I'm just kind of working my way through and just soldering the joints. Now I started really rough on a few of these, but then over time I kind of got better and better until finally actually some of the joints I think I did quite well. This is one of my worst ones, another bad one. This one could have been a bit better. This one was dreadful.
That's pretty good.
And yeah, that one was dreadful. Then it was the end of the class of the evening, and we decided to try and figure out, can we get into the concert? So I was stood here with a couple of elderly ladies from another course, and we just began discussing, could we get over there? So now we're on our way up the road to basically try and figure out if we can get into the concert. I mean, we really don't know, but we'll give it a try.
Let's finish off a great evening and leave all them troubles of the world out there. Mr. Trump and Mr. Flatford, leave them all out there. Shut the gate. We're going to have a fabulous evening, and thank you once again. It was really
Where we spent most of the evening listening to music from kind of the back of everything, not kind of taking the chance of going in, we then decided, what the hell, and made our way in.
Down
Michael.
Yeah,
Good boy, thank you.
safe journey home, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm sitting on the floor in my room because my phone needs to be on charge, and this is the only charger in the entire room. Well, it's the only plug socket in the entire room, to be honest. So I'm sitting here now, just basically having a hot chocolate. It's been a really good day. I'm obviously a lot further along than I was expecting to be with my panel. They weren't expecting me to have done any soldering today on it. I think they were just expecting us to have cut the glass and leaded it and everything like that. But, you know, I've managed to do quite well. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with like these sections, because obviously I'm not showing my face, but like obviously, because I don't really feel the need to. But like, you know, you've got like my room, which is nice, and it's just quite cozy at this time of night. So yeah, lovely. The setup in here is great because you've got like a load of teas, and then you've got like a load of coffees further on, and then there's like decaf and coffee, and then there's hot chocolates and everything. There's just like loads here. You've got your kettle, but like what they've given you right here, which I'm about to eat, is a complimentary chocolate bar. Now this thing is like it's not a small chocolate bar, so I think I'll you know, enjoy that in a moment while still sitting on the floor. So you know, I'm very relaxed right now. So I've woken up, it's the final day. Just got to kind of get everything put away and organised and sorted, and then it's time to go downstairs, have breakfast, pack the car, and do the final day. I don't know how many clips of these I'm going to use. Obviously I didn't expect this to kind of become as much of a vlog as it has. I mean, the start, I imagine it started quite, you know, with a lot of voiceovers, but now it's, you know, me actually recording clips. So I mean, it is what it is, but I've just popped everything back in the car. Obviously my room's now empty. I'm just going to go do a once over of the room and go down to breakfast, and I've got to make my packed lunch, and then basically we're you know, on the final lessons, and then it's time to go basically. It's a really beautiful place. I mean, like, I've been sleeping up there. Hang on. I've been sleeping up here in that little room there, which has been interesting to say the least. But yeah, breakfast. So because I have a strong belief not to kind of interrupt other people while they're living their lives by making a video. So this is our lunch making area. So they kind of put out bread out every morning, and like butter and jam and Branston pickles, and I'll put the lid on this one. They then obviously put out like fruit and cookies, and obviously you've got a salad bar kind of thing. Obviously it has all the kind of sandwich fillings, I guess. And then you put your food in the fridge and label it up, and then basically you come back and eat it at lunchtime. So I mean, it's pretty damn nice, to be honest.
You can use your Sharpie mark to put it back in the right place. But as soon as you start writing.
So next it was time to solder my entire panel, doing all the bits that I didn't manage to get round to soldering the night before.
that's a bit of cloud is coming into.
And then it was time for the really quite messy bit.
So what you're aiming to do is get the cement underneath the lead,
This is the bit where you move
and
one
you push it
bit,
in,
everything else you
and
move
then you turn it over and do the same on the other side. And what will happen, because it's really soft, is that when you push it in on the other side, it will push it out on the side that's underneath. It's just a bit of a pain. Once we've put lead under all the sides, of the cement under all the sides, we're going to go over with something called whiting, which is basically chalk dust, which sucks the oils out of the cement, and you normally put the whiting on and then leave it a few days, because that will help harden it all up.
With us, glass
But
is
today
quite
we're going
sharp,
to just try and do it in
and
an hour or so,
it makes things
which means
angry
that this
and
won't be fully settled
so what we need to do
when you
is
finish
just
today,
push.
and you may want to don't try and just make it all pristine
As the
immediately.
cane gets smaller,
Leave it a few
gets
days
tougher to move.
to settle down,
Now
and
move
then
that
you
back.
can give it a really hard polish and rub it off. But all you're doing is you just push it underneath like this.
You're just working it in.
And then when you've run out of cement,
It wasn't quite secure.
you take some more.
That's
Carry
because
on
you
going.
can't out it.
And the reason I get this job is there ain't a lot of skill to it.
That
Yeah,
is
it's
not
not
what
good
you
to
want
you.
to see.
So as you can see, I then started after that, just basically trying to put the cement in all the gaps. Obviously we're using a little kid's toothbrush. Obviously kids' toothbrushes are quite cheap, which means that doing something like this means that you're just buy a couple of cheap little toothbrushes, because obviously after you're done with it, you're not going to want to clean your teeth with it, you're going to want to bin it. Unless you really like cleaning your teeth with lead, I guess. So I work my way along, you do one side, and then you basically do the other side, or you do one, you do one side, you then flip it over, you do the other side, and then you absolutely cover it in this, and I'm pretty sure it's calcium carbonate, which obviously drags all of the kind of oils and everything out of it. You leave it for a little while. I left it for an hour before obviously I started brushing this all off, and then basically over time you kind of take it more and more off and keep on going, as you can see, until eventually you have a lovely nice clean panel. Here I am pouring all the powder on the other side, doing the exact same thing again, and then yeah, we had our finished panels. So I thoroughly enjoyed this course. I must admit, if you're looking to try and do something you've never done before, give it a try. Flatford Mill and the stained glass making course, and truly I had an incredible time doing this, and I'm definitely looking for other courses to do, but I'm also looking to convert my studio into more of a kind of stained glass making studio so I can do this more. Thank you very much for watching, and if you like this video, please feel free to subscribe. Bye bye.